So let us begin. I see only 40 computers logged in at the moment. We'll see how many more show up. Figure out that the newsletter link was broken. It's lovely to be with you here today. Welcome, welcome to this gathering of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. Let's see, here's someone who cannot find the correct link. They're looking. I don't know if it's possible for me to tell them otherwise, but there are people who are having trouble because the wrong link was put up on okay, so let me see if that's I can help. Never mind. So that's the basic announcement, is that you can reach out to your friends, send emails to them, tell them that the correct link is on the website, not on in the newsletter. When I did seminary, I did not take a class on how to produce worship during a time of pandemic. And we are all learning, all of us, Chris Lehman and Joe Cantrell and all the worship team have all been trying to learn. The most important point I want to tell you is that next week at 10, we will do something else. We will continue to stream live something. Marianne Traus is working very hard, member of the congregation, new member, is working, longstanding here, working to create something for next Sunday. And then the week after that, which is Easter Sunday, we will be using a different platform. My expectation is that there will be not just me alone creating the content for our gathering, the focus of our gathering, but there will be several people using Zoom, so we'll all have to connect through Zoom. So I'm making you aware of this, the future plans. We are all learning as we go, learning, flying by the seat of our pants, as we say. It's nice to be gathered together. For chalice lighting, I have these words. The chalice, the flaming chalice, is a symbol of our community. Like each of us, it has a body shaped from earth and water and heat. Its light is the image of the shining truth that awakens our minds. Its burning is a reminder of the vibrant hope that guides our community. Its small flame reminds us of the great love that calls to us over and over again, drawing us together. I'd like us all to now sing Spirit of Life as a centering song. Most of the members of the congregation know this song by heart. We can sing it. I do have a recording of it, and I'm just going to play a little bit. It's of a choir, and the sound is not good enough for me to play it all the way through. But I'm going to go ahead and play this. Thanks to Chris Lehman for finding this recording and saying that it was copyright free, so I can play at least some of it for the internet. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Now, please join with me in saying the covenant of this congregation. May love be the spirit of this congregation. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our covenant. I may have told some of you that I went to Prague once. Went to the Jewish cemetery in the part of Prague where all the Jews had lived and all the Jews had been driven out during World War II. And there's a cemetery in the heart of that quarter of Prague. And there were stones touching all the grave sites of people that others had been related to, acknowledging shared grief and shared sorrow. I invite any of you who have a joy or sorrow that you would like me to speak out loud to go ahead and type it into the chat. For all the sorrows that we share and all that go unspoken and unshared, I'm going to place a stone in the water and in the bowl. And then I shall pour water for all the joys that we share, all the joys that connect us, all the power that flows through our lives, binding us together. Sorrow. For joy. Evie says that it is snowing wherever she is. That is her joy. Nicole shares that her son's girlfriend just lost her mother 2 weeks ago. And so many share the joy of being connected, of saying hello to friends, of being a community virtually linked. There's a joy from Kalim. Playing makes me happy. This is Daryl Michaels shares this. Playing makes me happy, and I can't see it. Playing makes me happy, and decorating for my mommy's birthday is a joy shared online. There will be other joys and other sorrows shared, I'm sure, through our gathering time. The fun part, several people have mentioned how fun it is to have this interactive bit um, to feel connections and hear it's sort of like an ongoing coffee hour. I'm now going to play a little bit of the song Comfort Me. It's a choir in a UU church. I'm going to play just the piano part. And then once I've played that through, then I'll encourage all of you to join with me in singing Comfort Me. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me on my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me on my soul. For some years now, or many months, years in this congregation, we have taken a time for meditation and silence in our worship. I invite all of you to take, the audio of the song is terrible. I invite all of you to take a breath, take a deep breath, and to center yourself. And then we're going to sing the song, the first line of meditation on breathing, the harmony of meditation on breathing. We'll sing that through twice. When I breathe in love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. So I breathe in a peacefulness in our own hearts, and then from that peace, we're able to give love to others. So please sit, be comfortable, sing. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. And then we'll sit together in silence for a few moments. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. It's good to be centered, to be calm, to be attentive in the midst of all the change and disruption. It's even better to know that we are with others who are all seeking to be centered and calm and attentive in the midst of all this change and disruption. Each week when we gather together physically, we always take a collection, various kinds of collections. We bring things for the help and the assistance of others. There's a truth that I hold to, that there is more than enough for everyone if we share wisely. There is, for example, literally enough food in the world for everyone to eat and live, even though there are around 8 billion of us. But at the same time, we know that there are places of scarcity. In parts of this county, there are people who have no food in their homes and who are not sure where to turn. Some of us may feel cocooned and safe with family, sheltered in place. Some of us may feel deeply lonely that we do not have enough contact, enough people to connect with. Right now, some of us may be looking at our finances and thinking, it'll be okay. And at the very same time, there are people in this fellowship who may be thinking, will I have anything left 2 months from now? May we all be wise. May we all be thoughtful and considerate about how much we share and ways to share. One way is by supporting the work of this fellowship, sending financial donations, keeping up on your pledges. Another is the Community Resource Center in Encinitas, which is serving the poor and the hungry, the people on the streets directly. They need assistance. They're making a special appeal on their website right now. It's one of our allies, one of our partners. And I've heard of many neighbors and friends and Facebook pages that are helping people bring objects to one another, leaving them out of doors so they can be sterilized and brought in to help others. I encourage you to develop an abundance mentality, the idea that there is more than enough for everyone during this time of isolation and shutdown, even now. Resist fear by opening up to the kindness of others. Share your love. Bring compassion and abundance with all that you have to share. I'd like to share with you now a reading. At the National Assembly, the gathering of Unitarian Universalists, for many years now, we've had a primary lecture, a great speech from a significant person in the world, and it's called the Ware Lecture, named after the Ware family that funded it originally. In 2015, Dr. Cornel West gave the Ware Lecture, and these are words from his speech to the assembly. He first noted, he was noticing W.E. Du Bois, talking about that great intellectual of the 20th century, W.E. Du Bois, and who said, I've been wrestling with 4 questions all of my life, and every generation has to come to terms with these questions. The first question, how shall integrity face oppression? How shall integrity face oppression? Oh, for me, that's one of the most fundamental challenges of our day, because we live in an age of mendacity. It is an age in which lies are ubiquitous. And let us be very clear that to be fundamentally committed to integrity makes you countercultural in an age of mendacity. You have to cut so radically against the grain with intellectual integrity, the quest for the unarmed truth. In particular, Cornel West said, if you don't allow those who are suffering to raise their voices and play a role in shaping all of our destinies, you can be rest assured that mendacity is operating in a powerful manner. He went on to talk a little bit about what he loved about the Black Baptist community, all that it has produced, but he said, but then I love your UU commitment to intellectual integrity, your fundamental commitment to unarmed truth. And if it leads you outside the institutional church, that's fine, because you, for you. That's what it is to have integrity. And you take a stand based on your commitment to integrity. Shatter the dogma, shatter the doctrine if it doesn't make sense to you. Nothing wrong with that. Free thinker, cut across the grain, be transgressive. But at the same time, as I said, truth is always a two-edged sword, because we all fall short of the truth. But it's the aspiration I'm talking about. I'm going to add a little bit of music. I was going to play a recording at this point, but I can't quite do that. So I'm going to play a little bit more. I find that the sound is better if I turn away from the speaker, from the microphone. To focus today, I ask, how do we find the truth? How do you find the truth? And what we know is that in order to find the truth as an individual, you need to be a part of a community of truth seekers, a community of truth seeking. About a week ago, someone shared with me a screen capture of an acquaintance's Facebook post. A circle of friends, apparently, and acquaintances had been bemoaning the state of affairs. Economic collapse, growing unemployment, spreading illness, mounting death rates, and a lack of preparedness. Then one person posted, "Don't worry. Our president has discovered a cure for COVID-19, and he says we will all be back to business by Easter." Now, if you had been listening to the White House press briefings, you might know that how, with selective hearing, this person would think that her post was true. For she did think it was true. She was sincere in posting a message of hope. But her post reminds me of something that I heard from the astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson. He said, "The greatest danger is knowing enough about a subject to know when you are right, but not enough about a subject to know when you are wrong." The difficulty with truth, the difficulty with knowing truth, is that it is a vast and complicated thing. It is terrible, and it is beautiful, and it is multi-layered. It is certain and uncertain. And so we are always somewhere in between being both wrong and right, between knowing the truth and knowing part of the truth and knowing bits of the truth. De niño, when I was a child, I knew it was a fact. It was a certain fact that one should never go out of doors in pajamas, and certainly one should never wear pajamas all day. But then when my daughters were growing up and were in elementary school, they had pajama days. Everyone wore pajamas to school with shoes on and ran around the school in their socks and all day long. The truth had shifted. My understanding of the truth was changing. We are always both wrong and right. We try to be certain, to allow our convictions to be true, but then we are trapped by ideas. So there are 3 layers to truth, and I'm just going to touch upon these briefly. One layer of truth is facts. Facts are true. Find the true facts. Understand what is literally true. This is what science is built upon. Engineering is built upon. So much depends upon knowing the facts and knowing them rightly. And so our community is about science, affirms the power of the scientific method, where one observes the world and then makes a guess about it and then tests that guess and then analyzes the data that you get from your test and then shares that data with others and shares your analysis with others and then sees if other people can do the same test and come up with the same results. Truth is mentioned twice in our congregational covenant. The first upholds this vision, a hope, beginning with may it be. Altogether, our ultimate goal is to be a community of love and truth and service. But in specific, one of the things we hope for is that the quest for truth will be our sacrament. A sacrament is a ritual that allows us to participate in the most holy, the most sacred power of goodness and life. In Catholic Christian theology, a sacrament is a guaranteed channel for God's grace. For us, the most sacred ritual, as we state in our covenant, is not in the finding of truth, but in the seeking. It's in the seeking and the asking of questions that we come closer to the truth. Recently, there was a group of scientists who wanted to reproduce other people's scientific work. They took 100 psychological tests and 100 tests that were done related to climate science, and they tried to reproduce the results that had been done in those tests. Very strikingly, 35 of 100, only 35 of 100 tests on psychology, on human psychology, could be reproduced exactly with the same results as the original study. Human psychology is very complicated. It is very multi-layered. It is hard to take out one aspect of the human experience, of the human mind, and to study it rigidly, scientifically, verifiably, to find the facts that apply to all people. I've seen tests where something was proclaimed as certain, and then it turned out that the test was only given to 1,000 males, 1,000 people who identified as male, and no one, female or transgender, was included in the study. It's hard to do tests and make sure that they are about something as complex as human nature and human community. The striking thing about that same study, where they went and looked at 100 tests, of the 100 tests about climate and climate change, 97% could be verified. And of the outlying 3%, there were obvious errors in methodology or assumptions with which they started the test. So the process of scientific religious study is to share our results of our lives. Our own lives are our tests. Our own experiences, both our observation and then the choices that we make are our tests. And together we must share, together we must hear one another. When someone tells you about an experience they had of God's presence, understand that it is part of their test. And then you can challenge them, but also seek to find the truth. Find what it is about their experience. And if you have no experience of divine or holy being, then share your experiences and share the results of your life, for your life is a test. The second layer of truth is what we do, how we understand those facts. It's the truth. It's the true story, the truth of story. What story guides us in explaining and holding together the facts and the results of our testing of the facts? Truth is always, for human beings, much more than a series of facts. It's much more than a collection of facts. Always, the details of reality must come into a larger whole. The thing that makes human beings significantly different than all other animals and creatures, living beings on this earth, is that we tell each other truths. My daughter and I, a while back, were talking about that moment when babies start pointing at things. Little infants in our earliest day are starting to say, "What is that? And tell me about that. And notice that." This is part of being human. It's not simple, is pointing out the facts, but eventually that sharing becomes story. And the problem with most knowledge, all human knowledge really, is that it must live in community. We are living in community. And so our truths live and are shaped by the stories that we tell. We love stories. Right now, the internet is filled with stories, filled with all kinds of entertaining stories that move us or at least comfort us. We take the facts and we put them into a larger structure in order to hold all of them together and to try to see the bigger picture that puts everything in a meaningful whole. Recently, I've noted in many NPR reports, National Public Radio people talking about the press conferences that have come out from the White House, that in the person sharing, there's a certain wonder and maybe even a certain excited joy at talking about Dr. Anthony Fauci contradicting the President of the United States on live television and not being attacked for it. Now, I mention this because I love public radio, but I also mention this because of the way in which the stories that are meaningful and powerful to us shape our biases. Recently, a friend of mine was sharing what her experience was like being isolated, socially isolated. She and her wife are at home doing various things. And then she said, and every night, we watch MSNBC in order to keep up on the latest liberal propaganda. She's aware of her biases because she's a good Unitarian Universalist. So Unitarian Universalists, we share stories together. We share things that are meaningful and true. We admit when what is meaningful and true to us may not be exactly what is meaningful and true to someone else, and we are careful. Right now, we're all learning about racism and how to step up anti-racism, the fight against racism, to the next level. And what we're finding out is it's not just about being simplistic about race. It's not just about denying the fact that there's only one human race, denying all those stories about the many colors of the human races, that we can ever be separate in any meaningful way. It's more than that. It's also to notice that the story of race is still very active, very alive, shaping all of us. It's, in a way, though it's a totally false story, it is absolutely true that people are shaped by race all the time. It can determine your life or death. It can determine the quality of your existence, this story. And so we must be very careful. And in a truth-seeking community, like a Unitarian Universalist community, we don't just tell a story. We're always checking the assumptions in that story. We're always asking one another, what about this application? Or what about that understanding? And we bring back in the facts and say, the facts don't match the story. We keep encouraging one another to be truth seekers. This is what a truth-seeking community is all about. And we listen. As Cornel West told us, we listen to the voice of the oppressed. We listen to the voices of those who are suffering, those who are outside the circle of comfort and inclusion. And we tell their story as well. When I was in St. Louis, there was a young boy, 16-year-old, who was shot dead in a park. He had been part of our congregation, connected to our congregation. And I tell his story, and I think of his story over and over, how he had been raised in poverty, how his father had disappeared, and his mother was in jail, and his grandmother had done everything she could, and how he'd also been mentored by a Unitarian Universalist, and how his life had been changed, and yet he could not escape the powerful story of poverty, the powerful story of race, the powerful story of gun violence in this country. I remember his story. It is a part of my story, and I tell it. And I tell it because it is part of the real story. For wherever the stories of those who are poor and oppressed and suffering are not included, there the lie, the mendacity is most active. And then finally, I wanted to talk about the greatest truth. There was the greatest truth is that layer of ultimate truth. One of the great things about science, the reason that science is so effective at ferreting out facts, or at least getting as close to facts as we can, is that it admits always, the scientific method admits over and over that we never have it all. We talked about atoms being the building blocks of the universe, and then we began to find atomic particles, and then we found subatomic particles, and then we find field elements. We're finding more and more and more about the vast complexity of what it is that makes up this physical universe. We don't experience those layers very much, but we need to remember that there's this ultimate reality. And we have many ways of talking about ultimate reality, and religion is essentially about those moments where we open up to newer understanding. As William Channing said, we open up to new truth as an angel from heaven. The ultimate story, the ultimate reality, includes facts, and includes stories, and includes simply our experience, because the ultimate reality is just what we experience. Buddhists describe it as dharma, and other religions have other words for that ultimate reality, always beyond our understanding, always beyond our capturing. It's a famous line: anything that you can know about God is too limited because you can fit it inside your head. Always, truth is beyond our simple understandings, but you can find it in your lived experience. And you can use words, and you can use facts, and you can use story to open yourself to its presence. I've heard people talking about the COVID virus and how dangerous it is, different understandings, but under all this struggle is this fear of death and facing the reality of death in our lives. One of my colleagues, Lisa Bovey-Kemper, told a story about being a chaplain in a hospital. She told the story of two twin girls that were born in a hospital where she was serving as chaplain. One of the girls took a turn for the worse, and she was not expected to survive the night. And so people had gathered in the darkness of night, in the quiet of a nighttime maternity ward. The medical staff at first rushed back and forth. They tried everything they knew to keep her alive. Eventually, there was nothing more they could do medically. The baby was wrapped in a soft blanket and moved near to her sister. The nurse said, "They should be together for this," to nobody in particular. And then everyone in the unit circled around the two sisters, one, her arms waving, her legs moving, kick, 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 the other becoming more silent and quiet and still. And then someone whispered, "Can you pray?" And all eyes turned to the chaplain. And she writes about this moment. "For me, that was the moment I learned to tell the truth. A space opened in my heart and in the room, and the light of truth shone in. Lord, we are lost," I began. She spoke not to fix the reality, not to make the reality all right, but to be present with it. All she could do was name the pain and then name the space around that pain and loss. She writes, "What I learned in that moment has remained the foundation of my ministry: to name truth and to hold space, to speak the truth as best I understand it, and then hold a space for it to bloom." So as we talk about how difficult this situation is, as we tell stories, as we talk about the facts that move us, the facts that we've found to guide us, struggle that we have to understand what is true and to see that truth is shifting all the time, let us remember that we are in a community of truth seekers. Listen to one another carefully, speak to one another kindly, and always do so in the way to seek the truth. May we seek the truth in freedom. But it's not only in freedom, it's also in community. Let us be in community in any way we can, seeking always the truth, seeking the stories and the facts that will help us live and thrive and survive on this good earth. Of our extinguishers for extinguishing the chalice. And before you do so, just hold out your hands and imagine if you've got someone in your room with you that you feel fine about touching, go ahead and touch them. But if there's no one physically next to you or you're staying at a physical distance, feel the presence of other people. Imagine it. Know that it is there, that we are reaching out to one another through the internet, connecting as best we can. Our connections are real, not only through the little electronic waves of the internet, but through our actions, through our compassion, through our awareness, through our understanding. May the truth guide us as we go forward and as we extinguish this chalice. Extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. I'm going to leave the live stream on for about 5 minutes to allow you to have some chat. If you want to do some more chatting, then the still 31 of us up here. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the stream now. See you all around.